Call to order. Roll call, Mr. Spears.
Baker.
Here.
Cox. Here. Mr. Dominic. Mr. Epperson. Here. Mr. Escaday. Here. Mr. Jenkins. Present. Mr. Lynn. Here. Ms. Lynch. Here. Mr. Phillip. Mr. Pearson. Present. Mr. Smith. Here. Caddo. Here. Have the floor, Madam President.
Let us please stand. The invocation by Commissioner Thibodeau. Pledge of allegiance by Commissioner Pearson.
Lord, we thank you for all the good things you do for us every day, and we ask you to touch the hearts of those that may be hurting today. We ask you to help us make the best decisions for the citizens of Caddo, and we ask all these things in your Son's Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just started.
Let's see, no agenda additions, visitors. We have Miss Dr. Larissa Brown.
Hello, how are you?
City Clancy. Just come forth and give state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Larissa Brown. I'm Chief Planner with Goody Clancy in Boston. And what I thought, I thought that what would be useful today, I was asked to come for us to have a little bit more of a discussion about a potential master plan for the parish, the part of the parish outside of the NPC planning area. So I think you're getting handed out to you a couple of things. First is the memorandum that I sent back in May, which kind of gave some alternatives and some structure for doing something like this. And then there's another one that I thought might be useful for us to have a little discussion and for you to ask me questions and can talk a little bit about how you might do this and the kinds of things that you might be looking for in a plan. I mean, I think one of the things that's really important for us to think about is that this is really something that you can decide how, what you want this plan to be about, you and the citizens of this part of the parish, so that, both the process that you have and the plan itself can really be tailored to the issues that are of most concern to you. I mean, typically a master plan will cover a certain number of topics, and part of the reason for that is that what you want to do is to make sure that you understand how all kinds of things fit together, how economic development fits together, transportation, with land use, with natural resources, with your park system. So what you would want to do if you're going to do a full master plan for the whole this whole rural area of the parish, you would want to do a plan that looks at all of these issues. But ultimately, you also want to then, through discussions both on the commission level, any committees, advisory groups that you set up, and also in public meetings, have people talk about what are the things that they think are most important that you really need to think about in the future and to pay attention to. Because also, in any kind of community, there's some things that are working just fine, that there's no need to kind of, go into great detail about. We can end in a plan, often those kinds of things you say, continue doing, this great thing that you're doing, just carry on. It's working. Everybody's happy with it. But then there are other things that maybe are bigger questions or issues, or people aren't quite sure, what they want for the future, or they're not sure that things are going right. In your case, you have certain kinds of big changes that are coming up, whether it's I-49, or, the fact that you now have some tremendous resources that you have from your Haynesville Shale mineral rights. What do you as a parish want to do in the future to really leave a legacy for the future with that? So if we could look at this memorandum that I made today, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things to think about as you if you do want to consider doing a plan like this. So first of all, the commission will have to decide on some very simple things. One is, what's the time frame that you would want for a plan like this? again, typically a master plan for a community has a 20-year horizon. So it's not so short term that you're not really thinking big, but it's also not, thinking centuries away. But some communities, for example, will do a 10-year plan. Other communities say, okay, we really want to think much more into the future. We want to think about, what could happen 50 years from now. How can we think about this? How can we plan for this? And obviously, depending on the time frame that you choose, there will be a difference in terms of certain kinds of the amount of detail that you might be able to put into a 10-year plan. You might have more detail, obviously, than something like a 50-year plan, which would be a much more kind of visionary thing. So that's one thing. And then there'll be some, very practical things, identifying somebody in parish government who would be like the project manager, the point person. And also, one of the things is to decide what role you, as the commissioners, want to take. How much time do you personally want to put into a plan like this? So you could decide that you wanted to be quite distant, and have a bunch of committees, and then people come to you and make presentations and get your response. Or you could decide that you wanted to be much more involved and, divide up the commission into committees to work on certain kinds of things along with people from the public. So there are a lot of ways in which you can really tailor this to your interests and your desires for what you want the plan to be. So after sort of these organizing steps, then you want to sort of do a preliminary identification of what are sort of the issues and opportunities here. I mean, part of that would be the consultant team would go and look at maps and, plans that have been done before and, go see more of the parish. I mean, I've driven out part way, but not, all the way up far north. So we'd have to really get to know what the place looks like and what's out there. And then we would be doing a bunch of interviews with individuals and groups, just as we did with the NPC plan. And part of that is just to get an idea of what people are thinking. We would be asking, who should we talk to? There would be people in different parts of the parish. There would be people who have different kinds of interests. Certain, you might a group of farmers, people who really are making a living from the land or have timber. Maybe other big property owners. Maybe people who live in the small towns. I mean, deciding on different groups of people who might have specific interests and talking to them and get a sense of what's their view, what's going well, what are the things they're worried about, what do they want to see for the future. So the purpose really of this is so that we really get a sense of, what are the conditions today and, what's on people's minds. So it's sort of taking the temperature. And then you talk to those people and you ask them, well, who else should I talk to? And that's how you sort of get to know what's going on and get to know the people in the area. Then, it would be important to have some kind of initial sort of public meeting or meetings. Now, one way to do it is the way we're doing it with the NPC plan, having this big, extravaganza, this huge meeting this Saturday where we want to get, people from all over the area to come together and talk to one another. Another possibility would be to have a series of smaller meetings, but in different parts of the parish, because it could be, and this is something that you as the representatives would be much more sort of able to make a judgment about. It could be that people living in the very northern part of the parish, would feel a sense of that they have very specific issues that are quite different from people who live even south of Shreveport. So again, there are different ways to do it. Have a series of meetings in different areas, get a sense of what's on people's minds, or if it makes more sense, have one big meeting where you bring people together and say, okay, what are the things that really need to be the focus of this plan? What are the most important things that we want to look at? What are the things that we are most concerned about? So this would be something to that we'd have to have sort of a discussion on the pros and cons of doing this in different ways. Now, as I said, a master plan, if you're going to do a full master plan, typically covers, a series of topics. So here on page 2, I just noted, certain things that came to my mind as I was thinking about them in relation to Caddo Parish. So that first, you look at the natural and cultural heritage of the area, topography, resources, geology, your historic resources, your cultural background. There could be issues here, and I'm just sort of putting these out. I don't know this for a fact because I haven't talked to people about it. But, there may be people who are thinking, well, we have sort of a rural kind of lifestyle, out in this part of the parish, and we want to keep that. There are things about that we think are really important and that we want to keep. It could be, people are concerned about the fact that, yeah, it's great to have the gas drilling and to have the money from the Haynesville shale, but we've got to make sure that it happens in such a way that it really is going to still preserve, the landscape and the character of the place that we really like. Looking at historic sites, are there things that might be interesting to do to preserve or use some of the historic sites, and maybe even make them a subject of heritage tourism, that kind of thing. So that would be, a possible kind of set of topics to look at. Looking at what we call green infrastructure, which is really looking at all sort of the natural networks that you have, your parks and your open space. And that also means looking at all your water systems, so that you might want to say, okay, here we have an opportunity maybe to make a truly sort of world-class recreation park system in this parish. And we're looking at all of the existing parks, how they can be connected up, and your bayous and your drainage ways and your floodways, that this could be a fantastic system. You could have bikeways, you could have all kinds of things. So that could be one way to look at that. On housing, which is typically also a category in a master plan, this is something that, again, is there an interest in the parish, maybe looking at where you have people who are living in substandard housing. Is this something that, now that you have some resources, you might want to put some programs together to help, help low-income elderly or people with disabilities or with other kinds of issues, have a no-interest loan so they can bring their homes, up to a better standard. And that could be even a revolving fund that could last over and over and over, and help people who are living in conditions that could be improved. So that's just, again, an idea. I'm not saying that that's what you want to do or you should do it, but that could be something that could come out of this. Also looking at housing, that if you're going to have with I-49 a new interstate going through the parish, that can also bring new housing development, which you may want in many ways, but maybe you want to think about how you want it to happen, and not necessarily do you want it to be just, any old way that it might, that people start to build houses. In certain parts of the country, nowadays when you go into rural areas, every 100 feet or 200 feet on a country road, you'll see a house on an acre or 2 acres or something like that. And so it starts to really look more like the suburbs than like the countryside. And so the question is, is that something that people would be interested in thinking about and talking about or not? Economic development, of course, I know is a big issue, a big desire here. So looking at your existing economy, ways to grow that economy, and also potential new economic activities, and clearly, how they would be linked up to I-49 and other kinds of changes that are taking place. And here again, part of the value of a plan is not only to look at, what could all the positive impacts of something like that be, but are there maybe some unintended impacts, some negative things that you would want to plan to avoid, to try to make sure that you don't have to take them on as well. In transportation, again, I think I-49 is probably the major issue. Looking at infrastructure and facilities and services, I know that you're working on a potential utility district for the parish and other parishes. So that can be a very good thing, but that also can have impacts on how development takes place. So it's something worth thinking about for the future and planning for. And then finally, looking at land use really does sort of bring all these things together. So, these are just, some of the, some of the things that you might be wanting to look at as you began to look at a master plan. And it's something that we could, as we're talking here, we could start to refine, where you want to go with that. But I think also the issues and sort of the focus of the plan has to be affected by the input of the public. So as part of this plan, there would also be, in addition to sort of an early set of meetings, what I would suggest is to have some kind of advisory committee that is representative of people in various interests in various parts of the parish, and that could be something that could be appointed by the commission, or it could be created in some other way, and there are various ways it could be done. Having a set of public meetings on various topics, again, especially as ideas begin to bubble up, so you get people to comment and you have a dialogue going on. So as the plan develops, it begins to get refined on the basis of what people would like to see in the future. And then, of course, having all the kind of transparency where all the materials, the plans, the drafts are available to people so they can, again, comment. And over time, then you get a plan that people really know what it is. They have a they have a sense that the plan belongs to them because they were able to participate in it, and they also have a sense that their leadership was including them in the decisions that they were making. So that's all my my comments, and I hope we can have some questions and answers here and sort of get a sense of where you all are on this.
Okay, Commissioner Dominique.
I got a few questions. The first of all, how much planning has your company done in rural areas? And if you had, would it be possible to get a list of the rural areas that y'all have issued planning throughout the country, and particularly the southern states?
Right. I personally have done some rural planning in really more in the East, and worked on plans for communities that were they're communities that are sort of on the edge. They're rural, but they're also near enough to big cities that they're beginning to see the impacts. So I've done some work some of that I did before actually I came to Goody Clancy. And otherwise, I have to be honest, we haven't done a lot of rural, strictly rural planning in the South. When I worked on the Tyler plan, that also involved an ETJ, much of which actually was still rural. So we were looking at some of the rural issues there as well. But it's, you haven't done huge numbers of your rural plans.
Can you get us a list on?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
What is the difference between planning and zoning? Can you explain that?
Okay. Yeah. Zoning is an implementation tool. It's one implementation tool of a plan. You can have a plan that has nothing to do with zoning. So that zoning, zoning is about regulation. It's a way of implementing plans if that's the appropriate way to implement them. But many plans, don't necessarily have anything to do with zoning because they could be plans that are really focused on certain aspects of economic development. They could be focused on housing. For example, if you wanted this plan to have a big portion looking at things like, creating a great park network, that wouldn't necessarily have any, need to have anything to do park network.
Okay, yes.
That wouldn't necessarily have to involve zoning at all. And I think that, one of the things, because I understand that there's a concern that planning and zoning are the same thing, and that, and that by having a plan, you would necessarily be imposing zoning on a certain area. And that's not the case at all, because it's in the plan that, in the process of doing the plan, that by talking to people, you find out what, in fact, they are interested in seeing happen in their area. And if people don't want to have zoning, part of the process of a plan is a discussion about what are the pros and cons. Is there, people then become more knowledgeable about, what it means not to have zoning, the benefits of that, but also that there may be some things that they could benefit from having zoning, or even just zoning about certain things and not about others. So, as I said, all of this is that it's really possible to tailor the plan not only to this whole area, but to specific areas, parts of the parish. So there may be parts where there's an interest in having more regulation, or, for example, if you're thinking about around I-49, where you're going to have the interchanges, maybe you do want to have some kind of land use regulation there so that you can feel like you're going to get what you want, and maybe, instead of development that might not be such quality development. But other places, parts of the parish, people might, not really want it or need it.
Are you familiar with the tiering system that, for example, like Bossier has talked about?
I know something about it. I haven't, I've got the report. I haven't looked at it in detail, but I know that.
Have you ever heard of that being done?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And all of these things, even if it hasn't been done exactly someplace else, you can figure out, and of course make sure that it's, legally possible here.
Is it pretty common in rural areas to do a tiering system, or I guess, to me, rural and urban is different, and I'm just trying to get some idea on what the difference between rural planning and urban planning is that you would look at, like the tiering system.
Right. I mean, a tiering system is a possibility. Sometimes rural places will have, what they call general zoning, which basically they just have a couple of very basic regulations, so that you don't want, somebody to have a single-family home next to a, to a big gravel pit or something like that, but just very basic. And then, or, as places change or certain kinds of issues come up, then they may want to have other, parts of that area which previously had been just general zoning to be a little bit more, to have, more kind of developed zoning system, which then is functionally a tiering system.
Okay. Next question. What would be the estimated time frame, or is that, can you give me any type of estimated time frame on, once this process started? In other words, if we were ready to go on it today, what are we looking at? Are we looking at 6 months, a year, 18 months down the road before we have a plan back?
No, I think you need at least a year, and probably, between a year and 18 months. And the reason why is that it's important to have enough time for people to be able to learn about what's going on, to be able to, come to meetings and give their opinions, and also then to review it so that people don't feel rushed, that there's enough time at the end for everybody to feel they've got a chance to be able to talk about it, that there's time for revisions. Because any master plan in any community, it's very complicated. There's so many different pieces. And so it's completely normal to have situations where there may be something that wasn't first, thought about when somebody shows up and say, now wait a minute, you've got to think about this particular issue or this particular place. And then you have to make revisions. That's completely normal and expected.
Besides having the public meetings, how would you get out notices? Would we do this by mail? Would we mail out everyone, every resident, letters, information? How does that get out? That is one of my major concerns. I can understand having, public meetings, but people have a tendency, or I believe, that the ones that are pro-planning, pro-zoning have a tendency to be the ones that are more show up at the meetings, and then when something's implemented, you have a set of people, and I don't know if they'd be the majority or the minority, that would, then they're jumping up and down. Why didn't you tell me that?
And they're coming here to talk to you.
That's exactly. So how do you balance that? How do we make sure that the areas in the rural areas, these people are notified and have a chance for their voice to be heard?
Right. Well, I think the thing that we would have to do is develop, with you all, a kind of outreach program that is one that takes a lot of different kinds of routes. So we're not trying to do it just one way. I mean, one thing to do is to put try to get a notice in a piece of mail from the parish that everybody has to open and read, whether it's, a utility bill or a tax notice or something like that. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work because the schedule doesn't work, but that can be one way to do it. Then,
that tax notice, though.
well, that's right. Some people don't necessarily read them, but then other things you do, you go through community leaders, whether they're in the churches or in other kinds of organizations. I mean, part of it is obviously to, what we want to do is to take the meetings out to people in the parish, not expect them all to come here.
Well, I think it's obviously going to be true.
Yeah.
And the next question I would have, I think this is about the last one. What do you do with competing interests? If you have a majority of the people that think this way, and a minority of the people that think this way, where does all that come into play? And I guess being more specific, that the majority of the people want this in the area, the minority want this. Does the majority overrule the minority, or if the minority is the landowner versus 3 residents in this area, how does that come about?
Well, I think what we try to do is planning. It's not. Planning decisions aren't just, they aren't referenda. It's not just sort of up and down by majority vote always. And what you really try to do is to figure out, what are the concerns? Where are that everybody, everybody has interests. That's perfectly okay and normal. People have different kinds of concerns. What you want to do is figure out a way that you can satisfy at least some of the concerns of people maybe who are more in the minority. Sometimes we say that with plans that the best plan is one where, everybody sees something in it that they really like, but there also may be something that you can just barely stand, but you're willing to go along with it because you also see the benefits, of the positive things. So that, any master plan, which is a complicated document, is bound to have some things in it that, people will be totally, that a person could be totally enthusiastic about. Maybe other things they're not so happy with, but they think, well, I can live with it because, it's part of a bigger process. And so I think that's what we try to do. So it's a way of looking for a balance where, obviously if there's sort of a majority in favor of going in a certain direction, that has to be respected. But you do have to respect the minority concerns, because sometimes the minority concerns are based on something very important that has to be acknowledged.
Okay. I think that's all I have at this time.
Commissioner Cobb.
Well, he asked most of mine.
Okay, well, Commissioner Epperson, no.
He's going to do that. I agree with we need to have meetings both north, south, east, and west of the city limits, simply because we do have these small municipalities that have grown in their own way. We don't want to disturb that. We're talking about Blanchard, Vivian, Old City. We don't want to take away from what they have built over the years. We want to add to it, is the way I've always looked at it. So I-49 is our main corridor. I've always said that if we're going to do this, we need to do it right the first time and not rush us, because this is a plan that we are going to implement that's going to live for 50 to 100 years until the next crew comes in and says, we need another master plan. So I'm going to say here and now, I'm on board. We need to go ahead and get this started as a parish to see where we're going to go in the future, and make our stance as far as this is where we want our parish to grow and how we want to grow with industry, transportation, and our family life. So I appreciate the information you've given us so far, and maybe the rest of the commission can come to a conclusion soon and get this on the way. Thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Epperson.
Did your company participate in the study for New Orleans?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it complete?
It's in its last month or two. I mean, basically we're doing final revisions, working with the Planning Commission there, and then in September what we're calling the hearing document will go on the website for the public to look at, and then the hearings will start before the Planning Commission, and then it has hearings, and then it goes to City Council.
When did that start?
That started in June of 2008, and it was a very fast process for a place that complicated. It was challenging, I will say that.
That's all I have.
I've seen the other commissioners, Dr. Brown, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sure everyone is registered for the visioning forum on the
I hope so.
22nd. Hint, hint.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to seeing you, and also if anybody has any further questions, you can get my email or my phone number. I'd be happy to talk to anyone about any of these issues.
Commissioner Land just had a start.
Dr. Brown, at the meeting on the 22nd, I know that there's going to be 30 moderators that are going to be in a back room formulating questions based on questions that are answered to form questions based on answers.
No, that's not exactly the way it's going to work. Is that there's some questions that have been made up. Some very general. They're not particularly complicated questions. So that people will be asked first. Actually, there's going to be a series of questions that's about the demographics of the room. How old are you? Where are you from? Et cetera, et cetera. And then that'll be compared with the demographics of this area to see, does this room represent, in a reasonable way, the people in the community? And if not, then we know that we have even a bigger job to do to try to make sure that we get the people who are not there involved in the process. Then there are going to be some questions about things like, how you think about the future and the vision. And then the questions about particular topics are designed to be questions which then people around the tables, a small group, will talk to each other. They'll sort of generate, ideas, and then they will be asked to say, okay, which of these ideas do you think are the most important for the plan to address? Not do you agree with the answers or anything like that, but just what are the important issues? Then those issues will be put, there'll be somebody there with a computer. They'll put those issues into the computer. The information goes from the table computer to a group that we have sub-consultants who've done this kind of thing many, many places called Place Matters. And then they basically, what they've got now is an almost automated system. Like, when you go on websites and you see these, I've forgotten what they're called, but they do sort of like keywords, and then the bigger words show when sort of more people have. So they've got a system like that, which then will generate from all the tables what are the things that most people have identified as big issues. So that's what's going to be going on in that. It isn't sort of a back room in which there are other questions being.
Commissioners, will we be able to enter the room and just like, a fly on the wall, hang out in there and go?
As far as I know, I don't see any reason.
We'll be able to? Thank you. Cool. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you. So you call yourself a fly on the wall? You're calling yourself a fly on the wall ahead of time?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brown. Next item, Mr. Sears.
You have your administration report plus other reports.
Commissioners, Madam President, you probably were aware last week we did get some additional bonus money for our lease of minerals. We received $5.3 million, and we got the checks a few minutes ago, so it's official. We had the money in hand. Now it's in finance hand. We'll be in the bank tomorrow morning. So that's pretty much a done deal. And we have Sandy Davis here from the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. He needs to give us an update on the shelter situations. I went to a meeting last week. I thought it would be useful for you all to hear this information he has to say today about their preparation efforts toward these shelters. So, Mr. Sandy Davis, would you come forward and give us a brief up-to-date, if you would, please, on shelter status?
Thank you, Woody. Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the opportunity to present it to you once again. We have hopefully improved upon our planning not to be confused with zoning, for our shelters.
Good for you.
What we've done, we've come up with a plan that we call point-to-point. It gives us a better opportunity to know which customers we're going to be serving, whether we're going to be coming from Jefferson Parish or Orleans or Calcasieu. So what we've done, we've put the 8810 Jewella facility will have 2,000 people from Jefferson Parish. This is in the event of a full coastal evacuation. So there's a different plan if we do only Region 1. The West Park facility, which is not at this point in time turned over to the state, it should be turned over by 10 of September for another 2,000 people, will also be from Jefferson Parish. An additional 12,000 people from Jefferson Parish are estimated to be sent to out-of-state shelters to include Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Texas. Calcasieu Parish, with 1,600 residents, would come to the Hearst Coliseum. The Hearst Coliseum and the State Fairgrounds property, we've entered into a partnership and mutual aid agreement with the state of Oklahoma. First time ever in the history of the United States that we have partnered state to state to actually bring their resources to us rather than us sending our citizens to them. The goal of the Governor General and those of us in emergency management is by 2014 we'll be able to house every Louisiana resident within the confines of the borders of the state of Louisiana. There's just a lot of advantages to that. So this will be the first time that we've exercised that. The state of Oklahoma has made a huge commitment, and in fact, if we don't exercise it, which looks like Tropical Storm Anna is not going to impact us, and Hurricane Bill is not going to impact us. So perhaps we'll get through this season without having to exercise this plan. But the plan is for the state of Oklahoma to actually roll those resources in here in the first quarter of next year. We're making that planning right now. The Cameron Parish will go to the Riverview Theater, which is downtown Shreveport, 500 residents, and then we will build our shelter workforce, which we estimate to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 people at the old outlet mall on Greenwood Road, where we had some significant issues there last year. We're trying to eliminate using that as a shelter if we can. General population, that would be LSUS and Southern University Shreveport, as it always has, which would be an American Red Cross run facility. Just so that you know what our sister parishes are doing, Bossier City will partner with Assumption Parish for approximately 850 people with critical transportation needs and approximately 600 people with general population at the Centratel Center, and then the Bossier Medical Special Needs Shelter is at the Bossier Civic Center. Sex offenders that manifest themselves show up here in Caddo and Bossier parishes. That we've got room for 120 of them at Homer at the Wade Correctional Facility. Those are not individuals that are under the control of the Department of Corrections. Those are individuals that have fulfilled their obligation or on probation, and as part of their probation can't be in a shelter where there's children. Those will go to Homer, Louisiana. We're going to send 4,000 people to Arkansas, 5,000 to Georgia, 5,000 to Kentucky, 5,000 to Tennessee, and 10,000 to Texas. LSU Alexandria will get the Orleans Parish population, with 4,700 of those going between LSUA, Bastrop, and Monroe, and 25,300 of those will be sent to Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Some of the other parishes in our region that are hosting point-to-point, the only way we were able to do this, we found bed space basically for every Louisiana citizen that we anticipate would need in the critical transportation. Red River, Natchez, Caldwell, Rapides, Grant, Concordia, Point Coupé, Lincoln, Vernon, Ouachita, West Carroll, Avoyelles, and Tangipahoa are also serving as point-to-point smaller shelters, and in medical special needs in Alexandria, Lake Charles, Monroe, Grambling, Baton Rouge, Hammond, Thibodeau, and Lafayette. In addition, we have physically located in the shelter at 8810 Jewella, formerly known as Sam's. We have 4 shower systems that were built by a local contractor, Mr. Robert Shavers, who's gotten into the disaster response business as well as being notorious for his crawfish cooking. He has built those showers with the understanding that there would be no reimbursement until we deploy them for an evacuation, but they are physically in that shelter ready to be used today. In addition, we've looked at the cosmetic issues. We believe that when people pull up at a shelter, if they see a place that looks more friendly, user-friendly, that there's less issues. The property owners at both of those, the shelters at Sam's and the shelters at Atkinson, have done cosmetics. They've repainted, they've done flower bed work, they've done landscaping and those kind of things. There's some security concerns that we had at the old 8810 Jewella property. We put up a Jersey wall. We anticipate putting a fence up. That's our goal to complete by this fall. It won't be ready if we had to activate that shelter today. But to put a security fence completely around that shelter. In the meantime, we moved Jersey walls in, so there's only one point in, one point out for vehicles, and also there'll be security checkpoints for the clients there as well. OK's Cascade, who is the shelter management team, is contracted by the state. They're actually going to physically stage their showers, hand wash stations, portable toilets, generators, and other commodities at the outlet in exchange for them having a person permanently embedded in the operation in Baton Rouge. Our mass feeding group, I just met with them this morning. I've been trying for 4 years to meet with who's going to bring the showers, and who's going to bring the toilets, and who's going to bring the food. Finally, we're doing that. The Caddo group out of Baton Rouge is in charge of mass feeding. They feed to 6 shelters in the Caddo, Bossier, and Red River region. They will set up 2 mass kitchens here where the food would be cooked in Shreveport and not shipped out of Longview or other places like it was during the previous events. And they'll set up one at the State Fairgrounds, and they'll set up one at the old outlet on Greenwood Road, at the old Sam's on Jewella, and then they will feed those shelters here in Shreveport that way. We're meeting in the morning with Mr. Brookins out on West Park. He's expressed some concerns to Commissioner Cox about the security issues there with his facility being close by that shelter. So we're doing everything we can to reassure our local businesses, our local citizens, and then the clients that we'll serve in the event that we have a mass sheltering operation, that we have a better plan down and we'll be more ready to exercise that. And just a closing comment, our 2010 budget's coming up. I presented that to Woody the other day to pass on to finance. We're, again, not asking for an increase from you to support our mission. We have increased our staffing from 3 in 2005 to 7 on staff without asking for any increase from you as a commission to contribute to the operation of our office. And we're very pleased with the partnership that we share with you and the open line of communications that we maintain, and thank you for your support of our operation. So I'd entertain any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you, Sandy, for that. If we could get some other agencies to do that, we'd be in good
We're diligent in our efforts to give you better service for the same cost, and we know that even though this share money has shown up, that's one-time stuff perhaps, and we're not asking for anything extra. We're going to continue to do a good job for you as long as you continue to support us.
Okay. Commissioner Cox.
The plan that the state is looking at mirrors Florida. That plan that,
Yes, point.
Right. The meeting that I went to down in Baton Rouge, basically they were talking about they can move anybody from anywhere in the Florida to now in-state facilities, and nobody has to go out of the state.
Right.
Where are we, planning-wise? I mean, the word I got while I was down there, we're still way off from that.
We are. One issue that we have that Florida doesn't have is that basically from Interstate 10 south is marshland. So Interstate 10 becomes the levee for the Gulf of Mexico. Florida doesn't have to deal with that issue as much because they get higher above sea level more rapidly than we do. There's mitigation money that's being spent, hazard mitigation money for the first time ever. FEMA has allowed that to be spent for hardening of those existing shelters. For instance, Assumption Parish has taken, they've only got 3 schools in Assumption Parish, elementary, middle, and high school. They put storm shields up around those schools, and they put power generators in place, and they put commodities in place to be able to shelter their people in the parish for anything less than a Cat 4 storm. So we won't get anybody from Assumption Parish unless it's a Cat 4 or 5 or above. In the event that we do get them for a lesser storm, the duration in which we would be expected to house them will be shorter because of that. We're looking at our school systems to do that with. We're looking at any new buildings. If you look at the building codes in South Louisiana, they've increased those to the point to where they have to have a certain wind resistance. We've also, as you may be aware of, legislation was passed that requires service stations and convenience stores to have backup power along that I-10 and South corridor to be able to support the evacuation and the repatriation of those. So it's going to be a slow process. There's discussion about building mass shelters in Shreveport like we did in Alexandria for $32 million. But I personally feel that we're better off to house within the parish if we can do that. If folks are happier there, I'd be happier at home if I could stay home. So it's going to be a slow process. I would guess, just like you were talking about your plan, we're probably talking about a 20-year program to be successful in actually completing that, but Governor Jindal has given us that 2014 time frame. So there's further money being spent, parish money being spent to do that, to help improve that. Then there are vacant properties, bricks and mortar throughout the balance of the state that there are some fairly lucrative leases on those vacant properties, and there's a lot of property owners that are interested in doing that. But here again, we feel like the long-term answer is for them to harden buildings in South Louisiana.
And thanks for all your work.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Commissioner Pearson?
Thank you again, Sandy. The things that I think that I hear from my friends in South Louisiana is bathrooms and showers.
Yes, sir.
That's the thing that they were probably the most disappointed with, not necessarily in our shelters.
Well, they're in our shelters.
Yeah, okay. But if it's here,
yes,
if it's in Shreveport or Caddo Parish, it's all ours. And so I heard you say that there was some, 4 showers recently built.
Yes, sir.
If we had something to happen now, would we have enough showers in the facility at Westport and the one on Juella?
Yes, sir. What the state has done last year, there was a great misunderstanding, and I quote from Cool Hand Luke, a failure to communicate from Baton Rouge. Those contracts called for those resources to be on site 72 hours post landfall of tropical storm force winds. We evacuated 102 hours before the rainfall so there was basically a 5 to 7 day gap there. What they did, they amended those contracts to where they'll pull the trigger 102 hours or previous to that out, where that 72-hour time period starts in. OK's Cascade, which is the shelter manager, which furnishes the portable toilets, the hand wash stations, and the showers, they are going to pre-stage. They're in the process now of pre-staging. They've got some in Mount Pleasant, Texas, and they're moving them into Shreveport to pre-stage at the outlet. The problem that we run into those, as you can well expect, there's only a limited number of portable showers and portable toilets. We had the world's largest collection of both here at one time last year. The portable toilets are an issue. People tend to not like them as much as built-in toilets, and I agree with that completely. But that's the only solution that we have. Particularly when the state is leasing those buildings, they're not allowed to do any improvements to the building. The property owner has to do that, and then they have to do an addendum to their lease in order to do that. And they can only do $10,000 a year. It's a lot of bureaucratic red tape involved there. But let me assure you that I recognized and worked hard to fill those gaps last year when we realized they were there. And knowing that they're there now, shame on me if we hadn't done a better job of having those shelters ready for folks this time around. And I feel comfortable that we will. Will there be some shortfalls? Absolutely. There's going to be something that's not going to roll in time, and something that's not going to be exactly perhaps what the client expects. But we have vastly improved that and recognized what those gaps are, and have done everything we can do to improve that.
Are we going to need the large portable generators? When I say portable generators,
we're going to need we have those facilities, the old Juella building and the Atkinson Street building, have sufficient generators to run the lighting, emergency lighting, and the power outlets on the wall. It doesn't run the HVAC system. So what we've done is we've done a pre-task mission. We can, FEMA allows us to do a pre-task mission, which will, they've already done surveys. They've had electrical engineers come over and see what kind of generators they need, and they've already put in a request for those. So in theory, 102 hours out, when we decide to pull the trigger on mandatory evacuation, then they should pull the trigger as well on bringing those in and having those hooked up and ready for backup power. Now, what we're also doing is that we're looking at permanent, for instance, the medical special needs shelter in Bossier has a permanent backup generator that will run that whole facility. When they built the building in Alexandria, $32 million of our taxpayers' money, and they didn't even have a generator big enough to run the HVAC, so there's some issues there. But we realize that power is important. Fresh drinking and your sanitary, your hygiene issues are the important issues. I try to look at those shelters as if I were going to have to stay there, what would my priorities be?
and of course that is sanitary conditions and security and backup power. So we're addressing those. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Are you all making any provisions for H1N1 in your plan?
Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, we have two different issues. We have what we call a HERA-flu plan that we worked on. I have a Suburban that I purchased back in September. It's got 47,000 miles on it from making trips to Baton Rouge to talk about H1N1 and all these shelter issues. But we put a plan together. What happens if we do have mass sheltering operations and we do have a pandemic breakout? What we would do is more than likely we would try to, number one, identify those individuals in their parish pickup points, and we would put them all as best we could into a shelter that would be more of a quarantine type setup, to where we wouldn't move a well population and a sick population in together intentionally. If we identify an outbreak in a shelter, then we would put social distancing into effect and perhaps move them to a shelter that would be used more or less as a quarantine. I hate to even use that word, but social distancing is the new catchword for that. In addition, just so that you know, we're the first parish in the nation, or first county or parish in the nation, that actually bought our own supply of Tamiflu. Tamiflu was good for what they thought was going to be the avian flu, but of course it's mutated. Tamiflu can still be used in the event, not as a preventive measure, but in the event that the individual contracts the flu, it can be given to them in a 10-course application, and it reduces the effect and duration. So what we've done, we've purchased enough and have it in stock in a secure climate-controlled warehouse here in Shreveport to support all of your first responders, to include your law enforcement, your fire, your police, your public works, your city and parish administration. We got it for you too, so you didn't know that. And your families, because we know if we don't protect your families, then you're not going to be able to come to work. That includes our healthcare workers as well. So we've made a significant investment in that. In addition, there is a pharmaceutical stockpile that we have exercised and gotten the certification. We were the second ones in the nation. The state of Pennsylvania was the first. In 2004, they exercised that here in Shreveport, and we are certified to receive the national pharmaceutical stockpile, which we actually received 10% of whenever we had the scare back at the end of the school year on the flu. I'm convinced that it's not if, it's just when. We're probably going to see that this fall. Our biggest concern would be if we were in sheltering operations, but our second concern to that is how we would handle the general population. We have invested through our Metropolitan Medical Response grants. We've invested a significant amount in hardware to be able to set up clinics. If we could take a high school gymnasium or a college gymnasium and set up a clinic or a hospital setting there, we've got the ability to support that mission as well. So we've tried to be very proactive in that. If we get 100% of the population affected, we're not going to be able to handle that, but we hope that we're in constant contact with Center for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, and those agencies that are determining where that trend may be, and we're working hard. The main thing is going to be education, and we're trying to put that out too, hand washing and cough etiquette and those kind of things. So we're very, very much attuned to that potential for that issue and doing everything that we can to make sure that it doesn't affect us.
Oh, I see no other commissioners. Thank you so much.
You're certainly welcome. We shed a little water every once in a while too. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate it. Commissioners, last two quick items. I looked at the stations a worksheet for the upcoming legislative year of 2010. So, Commissioner Epperson talked about perhaps starting it early in the year, and I appreciate if you fill this worksheet out and give it back to me, and we'll go ahead and identify the folks that you want to handle your issues for you, and we try to get the ball rolling so we can get an early start at getting some commitment from the legislators to handle those your concerns for you. The second item I have for your station is an update from the Northwest Louisiana Economic Development Foundation Board, their monthly report. It kind of shows you all the different industries they're trying to track here under economic development, and each of you have a copy of this, so you can kind of read through it. They have quite a few jobs and potential opportunities that come to our areas. That's all I have, ma'am.
Commissioner Cox?
Just a quick thank you to Larry and his staff. We had some vandalism in some of our parks, and I got a call from Mr. Quillen, and I understand that we caught 2 people, 3 people that vandalized our restrooms at one of the local parks, and what they did to it was pretty insane, to say the least. But due to good work by not only Mr. Quillen, Larry, and the Sheriff's Department, we did catch those 3 vandalism, or those 3 juveniles. And from what I understand, in my words the last meeting, we are going to prosecute them to the fullest extent. Am I correct, Larry?
I hope so.
I don't mind. Well, they all have laws too, so.
In our center?
Yeah, they're in our center, I guess. But I just want to say thank you to Larry and your crew for doing that. And, and there was a good Samaritan that came up and gave some information at the same time, so that helped out a lot. So, thank you, Larry.
Commissioner Epperson?
With the Cooper Transportation that I think handled some hauling for General Motors plant, I think they opened back up and they're going to, start doing some work. They're out of business, I believe. Could you find out who has the transportation now?
Yes, sir.
For hauling those vehicles? Right.
Okay.
As well as, will they be utilizing that area to the right of Dinkins Drive off in that pit light? Okay, is that owned by us, at least by us?
No, sir.
Are you familiar with?
I don't think we all know.
Okay. But they are going to be, as far as you know, going to be using that?
We can find out.
Okay, if you would, find out who the principals are and where they're located and all that for me, please.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, I have a question for, I guess, Mr. Kirkland, in regards to some citizens in Lakeview, in regards to the horses and zoning. What's the status of what's going on in Lakeview?
Some of you probably seen this in the newspaper where residents in this part of the city parish have got a fair number of animals. Some of them have been there for years, but animals in the R1 zoning district, in fact in every district except for RA, are illegal to have unless you get approval through the Zoning Board of Appeals. There are, as you know, Ms. McCullough, the neighborhood group up there is a very active group. I believe Ms. Joanne Wheelis and a number of others are active in that, and they have been putting a fair amount of pressure on the MPC to enforce that law. Now, we've got 2 inspectors for 308 square miles of territory under the MPC, and we primarily respond to complaints. And so a number of complaints have come in, and notices have gone out, and those families who do have animals have been cited, and they will be taken to court to have a judge ask them why they don't get rid of the animals in accord with the law, possibly fine them or whatever, or they can file. Now, as of this date, no one has filed, and of course they're saying, well, they've had them forever, and they've got a lot of reasons why they think the law doesn't apply. The law does apply. Now, Ms. Bowman on the City Council had asked for some, I'm not going to call it relief, but some less expensive method for folks who have animals to get a decision on that. So the board, the MPC board, did approve at its last meeting that the staff to prepare an ordinance that would allow administrative review and approval. That would cost $150 for someone to apply. And the way that works on something like this is the person comes in, pays the money, and we prepare a map and basically identify all of the neighbors around them, that if every single one of those property owners, not tenants, property owners will sign, then of course they could get an administrative approval and have the animals. Now the animals can range all the way from 2 chickens to 3 or 4 horses or cows or hogs or sheep or goats, or, as you know, and it depends on the neighbors. If the neighbors, the site plan would also be in that process. That would be a less expensive and a faster way of getting a decision on that would be legally binding. But it's sort of a street justice thing. If the neighbors, if like you or one of the neighbors or anyone else were to get that property owner were to ask you to sign it, if you did, then of course you do that knowing exactly what's going to be there. It couldn't be chickens today and hogs tomorrow, for example. You'd have to have whatever animal, 2 ducks, or I don't know, my kids, when they were growing up, they had the 2 or 3 chickens and even had ducks one time. And of course, usually you want to get rid of them before too long, at least we did. But some families want to keep horses and whatnot. That's because of where we are. I would anticipate the public hearing to occur on that ordinance no later than October. In the interim, we are proceeding to take the folks to court that either do not file or do not remove the animals. So that's where we are.
Well, actually, I have 2 notices here from the same person, Mr. Hatter. Have you all talked with him at all?
We would send that on to you, the Caddo Commission, as well. Is that what you're...
Right. Well, actually, he asked if I would come out and talk to them about the horses. I've actually witnessed donkeys over there, you know, so some of everything going on over there. But
well, it's they'll have a hearing if they choose to. If they wanted to do that, or they can get rid of the animals. Now, just because you've had them, somebody said, well, what if I've had them for 20 years? Well, I might have been speeding for 20 years, too. That doesn't make it legal.
But the public
bottom line is...
You said the public hearing is coming up in October.
October is when I'm thinking the hearing will be on that ordinance. Now, I'm guessing we're going to have quite a few folks apply for that because it's a less expensive way, and every one of them has been telling me, all my neighbors are fine with this. Well, their neighbors are some of the ones who turned them in. And, of course, they don't know it, and we don't go around telling them who's turned it in, but it's a public process.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. I have another. I wanted to inquire about the Human Services and Education Steering Committee report. Somebody submitted this. I saw it was in our packets.
And that was from the Alliance of Education and Human Services District report.
Okay.
On the last meeting they had. Mrs. Latari came here at our last meeting and kind of briefed the commission on what the progress was.
Okay.
So she's made sure we all got a copy of the report.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Cox. I was just asking a question, Mr. Pepper. You know, the city is saying that they're going to. Where'd Charles go?
He took off about the back.
Well, one thing we need.
Mr. Kirkman. I'm sorry.
Mr. Kirkman. Yeah, I guess he went out the back too.
He went out the car door.
Basically, the question was, the city said they're going to charge $150. I was just asking Mr. Pepper, well, if we're going to have to do some of the working on this, where's our cut?
That's right. Getting some water, David.
Yeah, that's fine. The question was, the city's, to get a permit for certain animals, our guys are going to go out and inspect that area, make sure it's fine and dandy. They're going to charge these people $150 after everything's done. The neighbor is okay and everything. Where's our split? Because that's all
we're charging us for the process.
There's our management fee.
You want us to add one? Y'all voted down fee increases here a few months back, but we can certainly, if you want to tell us how much, put it on.
I like it when the city brings up the fee, but yeah, we're doing the work.
Well, not on this.
Well, unless I misunderstood. You said they're going to charge an individual $150
for applying, or to be, I guess, get a street ruling or whatever.
Okay, but after the fact, and they approve them, we still have to do the work.
Are you talking about the animal control?
Yeah.
Well, that's up to them to, if they want to establish a fee, David, I'd say more power to them. All they got to say, if you got animals and they want to charge them a fee because of, I understand the merits of having to inspect them for health reasons and whatever, but I'd say that ordinance would be the one to amend, charge a fee there for inspection purposes.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would not be,
they're making an ordinance
for us, since we're not doing the inspection work.
Well, they're making an ordinance, but asking our facility to do the work, so I'm kind of wondering, let us get paid for our work.
We're not asking them to do the work. I mean, if they need a fee increase, just like any part of a government, you know, you can ask for one or charge it, establish it, but I don't think the zoning fee would be placed since we're not doing the inspection to see. There will be conditions placed on the approval, would be my opinion, based on whether we're talking about 2 chickens or a horse or a hog or whatever, based on sanitary conditions. I remember years ago, quick example, I see John left.
Well, you don't have to worry about it.
Whoa.
Sorry about that.
You being on me.
You can put conditions out, like if you got chickens and you got to have a chicken coop, you ought to clean it, you ought to lamb it once a week.
All right,
I know that because I grew up in the country and we had chickens.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thanks, sir. Sorry, Madam President.
I was a little worried when Sheriff Frieder came, but now I'm getting real worried now that our state senator, Lydia Jackson, has joined us.
Too bad it's good news, probably.
But she has a big purse, so that means she has a lot of money for the parish this year. Oh, you knew better than to come with a purse in here. Thank you for joining us today. You want to have anything to say, madam? Commissioner Lynn?
I didn't mean for Mr. Kirkland to sit down. Mr. Kirkland, so there's an administrative approval of $150 to get the form to fill out the application, then to give to you. And if all of the neighbors surrounding a property approve of a person having, say, 2 chickens on their 3/4 of an acre within the city of Shreveport, that could be allowed by you, and you could either say yes or no, and then that would be at the administrative discretion.
Right. We've got that in place now, we just don't have it now.
And that would be applicable to any neighborhood within the city limits?
Well,
They're not in the city limits.
Lakeview's not in the city.
They're not in the city
We'll put that
limits.
on in front of you as well. Covenants are a private matter.
Right.
What paper they're written on.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Thibodeau?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the mosquito control folks for taking care of some of those big, large mosquitoes that were in our area. They sprayed 2 or 3 times, and it's really made a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just had a couple of things. One, speaking of mosquitoes, I know the truck was out in Moortown today, so I just want to make sure. I think she said they were coming back this evening. Okay. And then I also had a complaint about cats in the 5100 block of Armstrong. Mr. Wilson, I have a question about the RFPs that have gone out. I saw some in the Sun, but I didn't see them on the website, and I didn't see them on BidSync, so I just need to make sure how we're doing that, and if they're it's being re-advertised from week to week. Can we check that?
Yes, ma'am. I'll get with Jack. Check that out.
I think that was it. That's all I had. Thank you. Communiques and reports? Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. We had a wardrobe malfunction. I need a motion to suspend the rules to allow visitors.
Second.
Without exception. Mr. Jackie Madden? Maiden, I'm sorry. You can state your full name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. Hope all is well. Jackie Ray Mayton, 10570 Woolworth Road, Keithville, Louisiana. Okay, I'm here. Thank you for listening. I'm here in regards to a component of the Caddo Parish school system, which is called the boot camp. In 1997, Principal Margaret Brown, the Honorable Matlock, I believe then it was Judicial Administrator Ted Cox, went to East Texas to look at a boot camp, a STAR boot camp. It was there that they became excited, and they knew that this could work in Caddo Parish. So they brought the information back to Caddo Parish and presented it to the Caddo Parish commissioners. Probably at that time, many of you were not members of the commission, but it was approved by the commission, and it was implemented. And what we ascertained at that time was that many of the components that was in that boot camp would be applicable for Caddo Parish School System. And it has been in existence since 1997. Our goals are to provide a setting for students that are highly at risk of academic failure as a result of behavior problems. These students come to the boot camp by recommendation of the juvenile court system and other administrators who have knowledge of their behavior. There's about 100 students that go through the boot camp on a yearly basis. It has been very productive. We've gotten a lot of good results from it, but we need your help now. The state was funding the boot camp. This year there are no funding because the governor, for some reason, did not reinstate the funding. And we're asking that the Caddo Commissioner look at this program and look at all of the great results that we've gotten from it and consider assisting us with funding it for this school year. We are looking for other ways and means of funding it for in the years to come. And so I'm here today asking that you would consider looking at what the boot camp has done, looking at the components of it, looking at the results of what has been done, and considering providing some funding for the boot camp. It was housed at the old Oak Terrace Center, which is now the new Linwood. They have moved to the Ingersoll site, and the school is now being called Caddo Academic Recovery and Career Discovery. And we have the facilities already set up. The rooms are ready to go. The students are on hold. We just need to get the funding. And I'm here today asking you to perhaps consider how you may assist us in that endeavor.
I have no commissioners, Mr. Madden. Thank you so much for coming down, Mr. Maiden.
When can I hear from you?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our administrator to contact you and visit with you about it, okay?
Okay, school started today.
Yes.
Very good.
Well, I missed the bus this morning, but we did the hop on the bus. Hopped in the car. Commissioner Dominique?
I know that our administrator, Mr. Wilson, has written the superintendent at least twice on this issue, and I had requested it. Specifically, was the school board going to get involved? What were they going to do? Would they be able to help us anything? Last thing Mr. Wilson said, haven't heard a reply. That's why I got to
Yes, you did.
Commissioner Lynch.
Said they weren't going to help us.
I kind of spoke with them this morning, and you know what you hear is they provide the school, they provide the teachers, so their investment is significant in regards to what they do for the boot camp. So they consider their investment already made, have been made, significantly made, in regard to what they provide for. I don't know how many teachers, upwards of about 4 teachers, isn't it?
We had 5.
5 teachers?
We had 5 instructors. So
5 instructors, all funded by Caddo Parish School?
No, sir. 5 was funded by the state.
By the boot camp?
Yes.
Okay, by the funding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now do they have instructors funded by Caddo Parish?
We have what is called in-kind. We have school psychologists, school counselors, and we have APAs, APIs, and principals and teachers, all within the proximity there to assist with whatever need exists. So,
well, I was talking about funded by the school system, because I think that's where you get the you know, if there is a tug of war, that's where you get the tug of war from. So, well, you know, we provide this and already. And so, but, you know, when you look at it, they're all our kids. I mean, whether or not we can, I'm not sure. We're going to have to meet and somehow, you know, discuss it and talk about it. But they're all our kids. It's kind of like those FAMR filters. You know, you see me now, you see me later. You know, I mean, that's just kind of the way I feel about it. I mean, if they're at-risk children and you got a way that you can kind of help a few of them, or some of them, or half of them, or a large number of them, or whatever, that's a number that we won't have to see over in the detention center, or in somehow prosecuted by the juvenile justice system. So I mean, it's not an easy decision for anybody, especially us. And I'm sure we can get into the back and forth of whose responsibility it is, and we can swap that back and forth until Mr. Scott come ask us for 100 additional beds so we can house some more kids out of juvenile detention. I mean, we can, but at some point, it's just like everything else, it's going to have to be addressed. And I can't speak for the rest of the commission, but I'm willing to address it. Whether or not we can say that we're going to fund it or not, I'm not.
Just as a sidebar, if you would look at this program and see it's incredible. We have, just for your information, statistics on it. 80% of the students who go through that program return to their normal setting with no problems. These are students who come into this program, have gone through court system, have multiple suspension, expulsions, etc. Nowhere else for them to go but the boot camp. And the next day you see them acting like a model student when they go in there. And then they go back to their normal setting and they go on to be productive students. So my thing is, what amount of money can take the place of what you see happening with those students? And they're all our students as well, and they're doing well. And all we're asking is that fund it this year until we can look at some grants and things, and perhaps find some other monies out there that's available.
Commissioner Cox?
We have, and you probably already are aware of this, we have an intergovernmental body meeting where the city council, the commission, the school board gets together and talks about issues once a quarter. And that's coming up when, Lucky? Next month? Okay. So we can talk about that issue then, because of all bodies, we switch out who hosts that, and the next host is the school. So it would be great on their part to come up and with an idea when we have that, if you would get that to Mr. Dawkins. I'm like Mr. Pearson. These kids, you know, we don't need to throw them to the side, but when you look at the school, they have some schools that only have 300 kids in the school. The idea, well, they furnish the school, that to me is not halfway. They put on a big pep rally last week, and I can tell you they spent some money on that pep rally. It was good for everybody, put everybody in a good frame of mind, but, you know, when we start talking about money, let's make our money count.
Absolutely.
Okay? So if the school board wants to buddy up to everybody, whether it be the city council, because they got a stake in it too, because if these kids can't be reformed and put back into a regular school, they're going to see them either in juvenile justice or the police department. Absolutely. Or the state police, anybody. So it's up to us to look at any option that we can. And I'm willing to. I know Mr. Pearson is. And, but to come out and say, well, the school board says, well, we furnish a building. To me, that's a killjoy right there. That means nothing to me, because they got buildings everywhere. And buildings that ain't even being used. So I'm willing to look at anything you bring back to this board and try to see what we can come up with in the next month or so. and go from there. But I would ask the administration to get with Mr. Dawkins on our next intergovernmental meeting and make this one of the subjects. Thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Thibodeau?
I would be interested in the stats you were talking about, statistics. Have you done studies, follow-up studies after they leave, not just one semester, but followed up through, say, the time, 3 or 4 year period to see if in fact 80% of them were saved or not?
The statistics that I just gave was compiled through a 4-year study, and we had about 7% to go back and present problems, get into trouble. We had about 13% to come back to us. So that gives you the total 100%. And we're doing follow-ups. Really, it's almost impossible to start a program and not do statistics because you don't know where you are. And we keep the statistics on where our students are.
You'd be amazed how many programs get started and the people that start them don't have a clue as to what happened until the next year when they come and ask for more money. And you ask, well, what did you do with the money we gave you? And they, I don't know, not sure. But that would be the one thing that would really turn the tide for me, if you could show me empirically that this boot camp, if it has truly made a difference in 80% of kids' lives, then I'm certainly more likely to get on board. But I want to see something, where there was follow-up to just, and as far as the school system providing the building and the teachers, all that's paid for the taxpayers, Caddo Parish, and the teachers are going to be there anyway, because the teacher is based on the number of students within the school system. So whether or not those kids are able to participate in the boot camp, they're going to be in school somewhere. So those teachers are going to have to be employed anyhow. So I'm not sure if that's a totally legitimate reason. And the school board's got plenty of money.
Yeah, it's just a different in night and day.
You can say that.
With that boot camp, because the way it's handled, the way it's operated, and most importantly, it works. It works. I'm a 35-year retiree from Caddo Parish school system.
You've been retired 35 years, Jackie.
I did 33 in Caddo. But anyway, it works. I mean, you can't fight that. It works. I'm there. I was there every day. I saw students that were troubled students in the alternative program. We had nowhere else to put them except for in the boot camp. And the next day their pants were up. And they were, good morning, sir, how are you? All day long, good morning, sir, how are you? The day before that, they were you. But the next day, they're like gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. You can't put a price on that. So whatever you all can do in regards to helping us keep the boot camp, we would certainly appreciate it.
Maybe we need a boot camp component in every school.
That would be a good idea, but they have in-school suspension. They still have
Play day.
Well, Mr. Maiden, one of the reasons why I wanted you to talk with ask the administrator to speak with you, because I know in the last 6 years the extent to which the commission and our lobbyists and our staff has gone to try to make sure there was funding to keep the STAR boot camp afloat has been just phenomenal. Okay. And of course we have Senator Jackson to thank as well, because last year she stepped up to the plate along with Representative Morris to get the funding for last year. But we knew that this year was going to be a challenge, and trips were made to Baton Rouge and so on and so forth. So there's been a lot of effort on behalf of the commission to try to save the program and to have funding put in place for this school year. Just everything that we tried fell through. So, but I appreciate you coming down and providing us with some additional information. And we did, get a recommendation maybe a month or two ago on it. But, as you said, it's something that is not going to go away, and we just need to figure out how to address it. I don't know if that's going to be the way, but it's certainly something that stays before us on how to deal with issues related to juvenile. And And it is a collaborative process between the school system, law enforcement, and our governing body, as well as the city and the school board. And so that's kind of where we're trying to move it to where it's a collaborative process.
Absolutely. In addition to that, seeing is believing. When we have officials to come out and speak to them, it makes a lot of difference. So if we get it going, I ask that you come by, say hello to the students, spend a little time with them. I'm in the mentoring program that's out there, and we have a lot of positive mentors that are in this program. And when they come out and speak to the students, it makes a lot of difference in their lives. So if we get this up and going, I'm asking that you come by and just say hello to the students and wish them well.
Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you.
Good seeing you, Jack. Need a motion to go back into the regular session?
So moved.
Without exception. Communiques and reports.
Letter from North Caddo Medical Center asking that Mr. David Norman be appointed to replace Mr. Scott Welch.
Move to Thursday.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Dominique, second by Commissioner Cox. Any discussion?
Is this the hospital board?
Hospital in Vivian.
Yeah.
Caddo Medical Center. Yeah.
It's the hospital board?
Hospital board in Vivian.
Right.
Service District.
We're the ones that appoint the hospital board?
It was appointed in Georgia.
Caddo.
Oh, okay.
North Caddo and Vivian.
All right. That's good.
Please vote.
Just a moment, please.
Passes. We have a report from Commissioner Dominique.
Yes, I'd just like to thank everybody that was able to attend our most recent tour of our parks in the southern part of the parish. Really nice to get out to the other part, I guess the southern part of the parish, and visit other parks. Really enjoyed those. Really like to thank Larry Raymond and his staff for the 2 tours that we've had and the presentation that they were able to provide, and just look forward with continuing developing our parks. I think it was a good opportunity that for the ones who got to go, they will see exactly what our park and recreation facilities have. And I'm very familiar with the northern part of the parish and the tour that we took last month, but really opened up my eyes to see some different parks this time. So really enjoyed it, and I know that everybody else did, had some really a lot of positive feedback, and just appreciate Larry Raymond and the Parks and Recreations for putting it on.
Thank you. Commissioner Lynn?
I was going to touch base on the Juvenile Justice Department and let you have some numbers that we've been working with. Mr. Scott put together a pre-docket reminder call to remind everybody that they have to come into court the next day. And with that, we went from 30 children showing up for court to 60 to 70 children showing up for court on Thursdays with their family. This reduces the judge's obligation to produce the OTTIC, which is I always blank. Order to take into custody. Thank you. Order to take into custody, which means they'd still have to go to court on the first thing, and then they'd have to go to court on the second thing, and so that was all resolved with one phone call. Also, with our recidivism rate and the reduction of the children that we allow to stay within the juvenile detention facility, as of June the 1st, with our rating that we're doing, there was about 508 children that didn't necessarily qualify to go into the juvenile detention facility. Of those, I believe it was 7 went into a mental care facility, and of all of those, of all of those 508, 7 that went into a care facility walked out the door, one of them, and then got rearrested, and then one other got rearrested doing, I think, a piece of gum at a Family Dollar or something. And so, of the 508 that we did not let spend the night there, over, right at 500 of them haven't had to come back in, and so it's proving to work. The juvenile detention facility has had numbers in the last 2 months as low as 15 children within the facility, and the average capacity over the last 2 months has been 24. And so the numbers are working really well, and everybody out there is doing a great job. Anyway, that's it.
Mr. Scott, Ms. Burns, will y'all come up, please? Just wanted y'all to come up and take a bow like Rihanna says. Take a bow.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Bow?
Yeah, take a bow.
Great job. Good work you're doing.
All right. Next item, Mr. Spears.
No old business on the agenda. New business, ordinance 4908, measures debt service fund and capital improvement fund budgets to $10 million to spend the general obligation.
Commissioner Pearson, second by Commissioner Land. I have a question. I think me missing that meeting somehow made my question bank go up. Let me ask, on the agenda it just said something about the $10 million, but on the ordinance it's moving some stuff around, and I'm not real clear on why that's happening. Can you explain that?
Okay, Commissioner, we budgeted the monies to be transferred for this year's capital projects, the 2009, from the debt service fund, but that actually should have been from the capital improvement fund. So we're just changing the fund. What happens is the money comes into the debt service fund, but you cannot account for the expenditures from the debt service fund. You have to account for the expenditures from another fund, which is the capital improvement fund. So we had to make those changes. That's what you're seeing on the $5 million. And then we're appropriating the $10 million 2009 bond proceeds. We're just making a correction on the $5 million that we're estimating for the projects for 2009.
Okay, this was the part that Grant had recommended that we do. Is that all part of this moving?
No, this has not. This is only for the current year's budget. The current year budget, you budgeted a little over $5 million for projects to be paid for through bond proceeds, and we budgeted that transfer from the debt service fund, but it actually should be coming out of the capital improvement fund, not the debt service fund.
Okay. Thank you. Please vote. That passes. Next item.
Ordinance 4909, amends juvenile justice fund budget to reclass state prisoners grant $35,000, food and nutrition.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lynn, second by Commissioner Cox. Commissioner Thibodeau.
In global ordinances 4 through 10 under new business to be moved to Thursday.
I have a question on 8. Oh, I'm sorry, that's resolution. Go ahead.
4 through 7. I'm sorry, 4 through 7. Yeah, that's the resolution. 4 through 7. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Thibodeau, second by Commissioner Pearson. Any discussion? Please vote. That passes. Next item.
Resolution 41 advertises land requested by St. Mary Land and Exploration.
Thursday.
Moved by Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner Pearson. Any discussion? Commissioner Epperson.
Robert, is this based in my district?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that a contiguous piece of property, or is it fragmented, or what?
Probably the vast majority of it is, it's the Caddo Industrial Park.
Caddo Industrial Park.
On Shirley Francis, next to
Okay,
Alborg.
where we gonna put the wheel shop?
Yes.
One of the wheel
Yes.
shops?
That's it.
Could you get me a map of that for Thursday? Okay, and that's a total of about, what, 163 acres?
No, this is 88 acres.
88, oh, yeah, okay.
And like I said, it's, I want to say...
That's right off
about
Woolworth
60
and
of it's
Shirley
in the park.
Francis.
Right.
Okay.
And the rest of it is roads and such.
Road section, okay. I'd like a map.
Yeah, I'll
Give me a
bring you a
real map on it for Thursday, please. Thank you.
You gonna ask for the money to be given to your district?
I was thinking the same Commissioner Jenkins, one more time.
I thought I'd help you out, 'cause I figured if I help you out, you can get some later. Give me a little gap, yeah.
Resolution 42, proposes lease parish lands as requested by Classic Petroleum.
Move for Thursday.
Moved by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Dominique. Ask a question. The differences in the language that was changed.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we get it underlined or something so I'll know
Okay.
what specifically was changed?
That was
On the document?
from the
Right, I
Department of Natural
understand, but can
Resources.
you all underline it, Charles, or highlight it so we'll know? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jenkins,
That was my question, thank you.
Commissioner Dominique. Oh, I'm thinking like a
Where's
lawyer.
this property at? I mean, is this different highways?
These were
Right-of-ways?
these were adjudicated properties that y'all approved about a month ago, and the DNR attorneys wanted to add a couple of words.
I got you. I got you.
Vote? I'm sorry, I didn't see the name, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Epperson?
If we could in the future, I know it may be, some of it may be fragmented, but could we put down what commission districts that these parcels are located in?
Yes, I try and notify y'all beforehand. I sometimes forget because sometimes...
But I'm talking about, like we put the little deal down here, district? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, that passes. Please note Commissioner Jenkins voted yes. Next item.
Resolution 43 supports continued expedited funding for Camp Minden Regional Training Institute.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by the chair, second by Commissioner Jenkins. We received a request from the Coordinating and Development Corporation to prepare a resolution supporting the Camp Minden Regional Training Institute, which is the old Shell plant. You all know they're turning that into this huge regional training facility. They had already received $23.8 billion for Phase 1 construction, and now they're going back to Congress for Phase 2 construction. So this resolution is just in support of to our delegation to put in the funding in the 2011 budget. Please vote. That passes. Next item.
Move to
Consent
adjourn.
agenda. All,
And then ordinances.
that's all on consent agenda.
Oh, okay, all consent. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, there is a natural resource